Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and we're on Pizza Talk presented by Pizza Quest, where we've been meeting with some of the great pizza luminaries and artisans of all styles. And today we are really excited to have one of our old favorite friends, Tony Gemignani. Welcome, Tony. You're in San Francisco right now, in
Yep.
North Beach, right in the heart of your pizza empire and we'll hear all about that in a second and how it's expanded. But when we last visited with you, Tony, and filmed. It was almost 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, and the empire was just sort of getting off the ground. Can you fill us in a little bit? What's happened over these last 10 years? Because you're all over the place now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yes, it's 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now. It's expanded a lot. When you came into Tony's that time, I was a lot younger then. I think I had a little more hair.
All of
But
us.
when it came to it, we were offering about 5 different styles of pizza. That expanded. So right now, when you look at Tony's in its entirety, you have Tony's and Slice House that's connected. We now have a coal oven. We have a rotating Rotaflex oven in the slice shop, and then it's actually connected in the back, which where we have a wood-fired now Stefano Ferrara oven in the front. We have a double stack Marsal's, 2 double stack electric ovens. So we have 7 ovens going out of Tony's. And if you want New Haven, style pizza out of the coal oven, if you want Roman style pizza out of the electric oven, if you want, Grandma, Detroit, St. Louis. So
Yeah.
it's expanded from those 5 styles that maybe you had, 5 to 6. Now we're actually on to about 13 styles of pizza at that restaurant. So depending on the style that you like, is the right flour, the tomato, the oven.
That was what was so notable about the place when we first visited, when you're only doing 5, and now you're up to all these, other ones, is that you not only are doing the styles, but you're customizing with flour, the right oven, the right ingredients that match that particular style. I remember, in writing about you a lot, I refer to you as the Mozart of pizza because you can work in so many different mediums at the highest level. A lot of people are specialists in one particular style, but you really have achieved, the top of the pyramid in all these different styles, and it's prodigious. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I think looking at it now, a lot of these guys are accepting more styles. Before it was like, okay, I love Chicago, I only love Chicago. I'm a New York, I only do New York. But now you see like guys going into it, New Yorkers saying, oh, I like Roman now, or what's this Detroit thing that I heard about? So
Yeah.
I feel like the operator has changed quite a bit. They're not so just hardcore this particular style. I love pizza. If it's done right, I love it. If it's done wrong, I still kind of like it, but for me in general, I love. I've had great Chicago style pizza. I've gone to Detroit. I've had Emo's at its finest. I've even competed and judged a lot of the St. Louis championships they have. So for me, a lot of guys say, "No, I'll never go there." But man, if pizza is done right in that right oven, the right ingredients, or you have that right char around the edge, and you chiseled it out, and you made the dough correctly, man, it is super good. So for me, I celebrate every style of pizza. It's just, I always have and always will.
Which is pretty cool. But we got into in a little bit of a discussion the other day with Scott Wiener, who's kind of, again, a lover of all style. He calls himself a serious pizza enthusiast, of which I think many of us fall. And we were kind of discussing how do you even define pizza in that sense? Because you do have the purists like Mark Iacono, who says, I'm a pizza purist, it has to be these things. And then there's others like me who just say pizza is just dough with something on it. How would you kind of frame the discussion?
Well, I'm a pretty traditional guy. So when it goes down certain routes, there's a traditional side of it. If I look at it like, let's say, Detroit style, or if I look at a New York slice type of pizza, and if you were to say, hey, what would you define a New York slice pizza? I'd say, grande cheese, Stanislaus tomatoes. I would say all trumps, 18-inch cut into 6. I mean, I would go down that route kind of.
Right.
But if you're looking at it as how do you tweak it a little, or how do I make it a little better, or if I'm having Old Forge, would I make an Old Forge, let's say, with starter in it? I wouldn't, because Old Forge should be dense, same day dough, ready sponge, starter in it. It should have a ton of cheese. So I was talking to a guy the other day, and he says, hey, what do you think of this Detroit? He sent it to me, and he said, look, great. It looks like, there's some structure to it, but It doesn't need to be Roman. Well, what do you mean? Everyone on the internet is trying to get these giant holes. I said, yeah, but that's everybody on the internet. If I went to Buddy's right now and I went there, I'm not going to be cutting in and be all like, oh, geez, look at this. It doesn't have any structure in it. I mean, like, so when it comes to me, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I think it should go down the path of what it was or where it's at. But if I'm doing California style and I'm trying to Ed LeDoux it, and I'm grabbing whatever I can out of the fridge and grabbing my barbecue sauce and my chicken and say, okay, maybe cilantro on it. California style has always been innovated, experimental, multi-grains. So being in California, what's in the farmer's market, I'm going to grab it and make this awesome kale and almond pizza. When it comes to it, I think California can be that style that's innovated. And then, Neapolitan should be 900 degrees, charred, chewy, wet.
In other words, you're saying like the styles can vary, but within that style, there is a tradition and maybe a rubric that is important to follow.
Yes, so I'm a little bit of both, honestly. I am a traditionalist, and if I do have a margarita and I go in and this guy's just hardcore margarita, whatever, he's a VPN or APN or whatever, and I eat his pizza, and the guy has a California maybe tomato on it that is better and maybe sweeter, I may say, it's awesome, but I don't really taste that taste that I want to taste. It's a good example is having a New Yorker try a pastrami on rye. I always say, okay, pastrami and rye, I had it. What cheese should be on a pastrami and rye? What cheese would you say?
Me, personally, Swiss cheese.
Swiss, okay. I had a pastrami and rye with Monterey Jack.
No.
I ate it. And I'm like, okay, what do you think of that? It's great. I love Monterey Jack, but it's not really the flavor profile that I want.
Right.
Well, what do you mean? It's delicious. No, I kind of want to have Swiss. Well, why? Because that's how it should be.
That's my association with that.
Yeah. So there's certain associations that if you've gone to Detroit, I didn't just Google it. And if I went to St. Louis or I went to Naples and I went to Don Michele and I ate it or Starita and this is what it feels like. There's a flavor profile that if I labeled it this, it should taste like that. And sometimes people say, oh, well, this is a better ingredient. It's just better. I say, yeah, but it's not really the right ingredient for the flavor profile I want to taste.
Right.
And the analogies of kind of comparing it to that pastrami and rye is something I kind of tend to do, especially in New York. We'll say, Monterey Jack, are you nuts? Right. Say, well, I just want to give that analogy because, it's in that comparison. So, yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And it's sort of one of those endless debates and arguments because some people will say, hey, if you like it, it's okay to break the rules. And other people are going, yeah, but first you got to master the rules. And,
sure. Yeah, I kind of see that as like, yeah, I'm like that. And I do a little twist on like when you look at my Chicago style, my Chicago style pizza is really great. I did a lot of research on it. And
when you say Chicago style, Tony, do you mean the Chicago deep dish style or the Chicago thin crust style?
If I do my Chicago deep dish style, and if you look at my recipe and when I teach, I use now a French style butter. So a higher fat butter. I'm not just grabbing just a standard butter. So do I have a higher butter fat in my dough? Do I blend lard, which is kind of an old technique, and I'm using Sarasota and I have a little bit of cornmeal in it. In that dough recipe, would you say the fat is higher and better? Yeah. When I make my pizza, my Chicago dish, and it's even in my book, I'll put my ingredients, lay my mozzarella around, I'll put my sausage and ingredients on, and then I'll go to bake it. So everyone will say, well, why aren't you baking it with the sauce on it? And I said, well, because I like to bake my pie, take it out, very much like a Detroit style pizza, cut it, and then have my sauce and ladle it on that's just warmed up. Why do I do that? That's not really Chicago style. That's not how you should do it. Yeah. Well, is your pizza stronger? Does it come out like a piece of cake and it just sits there? Not like a lasagna that overcooked and it just kind of goes flat on your plate. Is it stronger? Did it cook faster? Is it better? And the guys, I think 100% of the time would say, yeah, it's better. Wow, that sauce kind of pops. It's really vibrant. The moisture didn't cook down into my pizza and make it a little weak and wet. So are there times that I add, an extra step or something that on a line, which guys hate in my restaurant, because you'll get a guy that says, okay, I work at Chicago style. Okay, well, it's a little different We're going to make our ingredients, then we're going to cut it, then we're going to put our sauce on. Okay, why are you doing that extra step? Because
so in a sense, you're staying within the flavor profile. You're keeping true to the flavor profile, but you're kind of pushing it to try to like get maximum flavor.
Faster pizza, stronger pizza, a more vibrant pizza, less wet pizza. So there's a lot of things over time that I've looked at and I've incorporated style. Say, what if I just cook that pie without the ingredients, with the ingredients, without the sauce? And like I do my Detroit, run those racing stripes over that pizza after the bake. Why don't I do that on my Chicago and see how it comes out? And then you'll do a side-by-side comparison. Be all, wow, it's not changing really much, but did I put the sauce on after the bake rather than before?
But that's really interesting because it shows you how different styles can have an impact and influence other styles. For instance, this whole idea of using fresh sauce and not baking the sauce on the pizza initially is getting a lot of traction now. It seems to have really begun to affect the way, and I think it's been a breakthrough for a lot of people who never had pizza before with fresh sauce on top.
Yeah, like the par bake discussion. You know, I had a guy from Canada call me yesterday, and Lloyd Pan said, "Hey, this person wants to open up a Detroit style. Will you talk to him?" So I get on the phone with him. He's a cool guy. He says, "I make pizzas at home. I'm loving it now. I'm not working much, and I'm making all these pizzas. I'm going to open up a Detroit pizza in Canada." I said, "Okay." He goes, "So how would you do it?" I said, "Well, you do par bake or not?" And he said, "Well, par bake, I don't know." And people have there's thing in their head that par bake is cafeteria style pizza. I'll never par bake a pizza. So I said, look, I went and trained in Italy. I went to the Scuola Italiana Pizzaioli. We started doing pan pizzas. And pan pizzas, even in competition in Italy, they're par baked. It's 90% of every pizza, competitive or how you're trained, is par baked.
Interesting.
So you par bake a pizza. Let's just say you're doing a Sicilian. I'm pushing it out. I let it rise. I par bake it, let it sit, take it out, then top it and put it back in. You can par bake your pizzas and have a number of them par baked. So I talked to him saying, okay, well, let's say you're busy and you want to do 50 pizzas a night. You're not doing it at your home anymore. You actually have a brick and mortar and you need to make pizzas. You have to be fast. He said, yeah, the way I do it now, I can't see it really being that fast. It's not. And I said, how do you seal a pizza and get it less moisture in it? You make it nice and crunchy. It supports your ingredients. I said, a par bake, for me, when it comes to like a grandma style, a Roman style, a Sicilian style pizza is much better. It's a stronger pie. It's crispier and they hold well. And how you hold them can go really well. So, you know, a lot of times you look at par bake, you have this kind of thing, like guys will even write hashtag never par baked. And if you just have ever done a comparison, it's not a bad thing. In your mind, you think it's a bad thing, but the proper way to actually get taught or to teach somebody how to make a good or the best pan pizza is par baked. So you got a lot of people that are just anti something, and it gets a little annoying because they've never even tried or attempted to even test it to really see what is better.
Yeah, well, you get a notion in your head, you know, about something, and then it becomes a bias against. Yeah. And then it's hard to, even when you do a side by side, you have to almost blindfold them and say, okay, now you tell me which one is real the par bake, you know. And
they're wondering why they're getting gum lines, or it's a little wet, or it's not, you know, they're not getting maybe an oven spring that they want. It's not rising. Like you know, a perfect example is Roman style pizzas. You'll get guys that put their sauce on it really tight. They kind of push down that structure out after it's risen. They land it in their oven. And all of a sudden they land in their oven, a long Roman pizza, and they're getting great structure. And they're like, well, it's weighing it down. Well, why wouldn't you get good oven spring when you have a bunch of toppings on it? It's kind of, you know, it's halfway here, and then I'll do it, and it says, God, it's so much better without it. Well, most Roman pizzas are white pies that are beautified with ingredients over the top, like coppa or whatever. And a lot of people just don't understand that you can actually screw up your crumb structure, your oven spring, from for adding too many toppings or being too hard or dense with using ingredients. So yeah, there's a lot of trial and error, and people don't realize that R&D is so important. That's something I've been doing freaking my whole life. You're always tweaking, you're always fine tuning things, and people don't realize that. It's just like, it's too easy to just Google it now. I always say that, you know, it's just, I love Google. I'm on it all the time, but really to experience something to be there and looking at Bonci's place and watching them make pizzas in Rome, or really kind of experimenting and going one-on-one and working with it. It's just so valuable to what we do, I think.
Well, earlier in the conversation, you threw out a couple of references that many of us are familiar with, but not everybody. So I want to go back and just, for those who aren't sure what you were talking about when you said Old Forge, which has been around for a long time and now is having, again, kind of a rebirth. Old Forge is very hot right now. Can you explain what Old Forge is for those who don't know?
So I always wanted to make that trek to Old Forge. In the Pizza Bible, the book I wrote, that was one style that didn't get in there, and I mentioned it a little bit. So I called a guy named Tony Ceramelli that at the time I didn't know him very well, and we became great friends. And I said, yeah, I'm going to take a trek. I'm going to be with Scott Anthony. I'm doing a book tour. I'm going all around the country, and I need to stop in Old Forge. So he said, okay, you got to go to Lou's, late name Mary Lou that's there, and try hers out, and Gennaro's and some of these guys. So we went there, and
those are the famous ones, and that's kind of like the buddies of Detroit is now. And Old Forge is in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, it's in Old Forge, Pennsylvania. It's a style that they say is Old Forge would be considered the pizza capital of the world, in this little town that has pizzerias all over the place, and they're all quite different as you go, slightly. So the dough it's called a pizza would be cooked in a tray. So you could order a tray. You can get a tray with sauce on it, or a white tray, or even actually a stuffed square pizza that has onions over the top, and they use onions in their sauce with raw chopped onions that they cook in their sauce. Huh. It's a heavy, dense pizza, which it's supposed to be. They're not supposed to be this big structure to it. It's bready. It goes down the bakery style route pizza that you would see in a bakery that's cooked on a sheet pan. It's soft to the bite. It's not super crunchy. You're not trying to get that grandma crunch that you have in it. Sometimes it's cooked in an oil. Sometimes it's even cooked, maybe sometimes they say in a peanut oil, different oils around. It's a blend of cheeses. So the cheese is way over top. So if you're a hardcore purist Roman guy that goes in there to be, oh, what the heck's this?
Yeah.
I loved it. I was with the guy, and another guy was there, and they didn't get it. Some people don't get it.
Yeah.
Some people just don't understand things. And I said, well,
some people will never get the St. Louis style, or if you didn't grow up with it and you have it and it's not what you're used to, it's going to like blow your head apart. You know?
Yeah, they'll never understand Provel cheese. They don't know why the sauce is sweet. When it comes to St. Louis,
right.
Why is it cut into square? Why is it in triangles? So when it comes to this particular style, I loved it. I mean, I got it. I wanted more, and I ate it. This is great. Is it the same day dough? Yeah, a lot of guys buy the dough from the same person that makes it, and they sell it. Some guys make their own dough. So I'm having this pizza that's way too much cheese, dense. As a bread guy, if you're a bread guy, you walk in, you say, this is all wrong. Like this.
Except that I'm also a cheese guy, so the cheese would get me over. Yeah.
A lot of bread guys that are like, guys that will walk in, they say, this is all wrong. For me, it was delicious. They loved it there. I got it. I understood it. And I said, okay, this is a very bakery style pizza. They use ready sponge in it, really high glue, a conditioner to make your dough ready sooner. It was kind of like the things that were taught on how to do things right. They were doing it all wrong. I even wrote a story about it and said, this is delicious. And I had guys next to me that were kind of purists, in a bread kind of way, saying like, this is not right.
It's so funny. It's like it's all wrong, and yet it's so right.
Yes, it is. And I got it. I understood it. And I even had Tony Ceramelli come to he came to my school, and I said, I want you to demo, this pizza to my course. I had Adam Sachs, who's a bread guy, was in that course and helping me, and he ate. He's all, I'm a bread guy. Everything I look at it, this is all kind of wrong, but man, it's good. So he got it.
That's the funny part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we run out of time, because we're gonna continue this conversation with you, in the next segment. But I wanted to go back to one other reference you made that warmed my heart, but a lot of people may not know. And you mentioned Ed LeDoux.
Yeah.
You're talking about California style, and I know Ed. Well, I wrote about Ed in my book also, and really was very important in the California pizza renaissance. Can you mention a few things about Ed?
Yeah, Ed, was one of the first starters of, California style pizza, anything, everything, kind of went down that chef driven route. He would do creme fraiche and salmon, and he would experiment. And before Wolfgang Puck became this guy,
Yeah.
in Wolfgang's kitchen was Ed LeDoux. And actually there's a story about Ed LeDoux. Ed LeDoux actually started making pizzas in a place called Frankie Johnny Luigi's. Frank D'Ambrosia told me this. He said, yeah, this guy would come and he made pizzas, and he was an interesting guy. He actually started working for us. I said, oh, really? Before, he went off to work for Wolfgang and all that.
He was up in San Francisco, wasn't he, Tony? He started
yeah. And so he actually worked at a pizzeria, Frankie Johnny Luigi's, which John told me this because John's a kind of a pizza guy, really a head guy out here in the West Coast. So Ed kind of went in and he would make pizzas and bring them out. And he really kind of made Wolfgang a little famous. It was his pizzas that were coming out of that kitchen.
I think that Wolfgang never really gave Ed his proper due, because Ed created the pizza at Spago.
Yeah.
And then as a result, I think he ended up being stolen away from Wolfgang and ended up at California Pizza Kitchen, right?
It's very sad. He did. He created several pizzas for California Pizza Kitchen. You look at, Ed and Alice Waters, and if you look at the route she went and what Ed was doing, it was much on the chef-driven, bringing pizza out of the box into a chef-driven kind of level and grabbing different ingredients, farmers market ingredients, and really bringing it to a different level. And so when it came to Ed, I met him a few times over the years. I think he had, was it Coyote Pizza? What was the name of his?
Yeah, Coyote, Coyote Canyon or something like that.
Yeah. And
in LA, yeah.
He had a cool concept he was trying to do, and he got sick towards the end of his life, and it happened a little suddenly, I think. And he was a guy that really
working on a book, I think, at the time.
California Pizza, and he's a great man, and he doesn't get a lot of props like he should. Yeah. And I always felt bad for that. And he would even talk to me. And there's some actually videos about him on a painter painting on a canvas, and that painter didn't sign it, and those paintings went off to sell for millions of dollars. And was he the guy that created that art? And did it go off and those guys made millions? It was, and it did.
Yeah.
And he was always kind of saying that I was an artist. I believe he said I was an artist back in the day that made a lot of things that were super creative and people made millions off of it. I just didn't happen to sign my name to that. And it's sad that didn't happen.
Well, but I'd love to talk about all this forever with you, because we could just keep going down memory lane on all these things. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, what I'd like to do also is talk a little bit about how you've made the pivot in this age of COVID. And because I know that you've had to pivot with each restaurant in a different way. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about your work at the school where you're training the future pizza, all those. And so I'm going to ask all of you to come back and join us on Pizza Talk, presented by Pizza Quest. We're with Tony Gemignani, the Mozart of pizza, and we're thrilled to have him. And we're going to continue this conversation when we come back. And join us then.